Hello and welcome to Cheating Wife Chronicles.
I stood there in the kitchen, my hands gripping the edge of the counter so hard my knuckles turned white, feeling like the air had been sucked out of the room. Celia sat at the table, sipping her tea like nothing was wrong, her voice calm and steady as she dropped the bomb. "It's just family at Caleb's graduation," she said, not even looking up from her cup. "It's less awkward if you don't come." "Less awkward for who?" I wanted to yell, to flip the table, to demand an explanation, but my throat tightened, and all I could do was stare at her. Then Caleb walked in, his backpack slung over one shoulder, and nodded like it was no big deal. "Yeah, Dad, it's just a ceremony. Don't take it personal." "Don't take it personal? How do you not take that personal?" I'd been there for every scraped knee, every late-night homework session, every game where I screamed my lungs out from the bleachers. I paid for that damn degree he was about to wave around, and now I wasn't even worth a seat in the back. The words hit me like a freight train, but I didn't let them see it. I've always been good at swallowing the hurt, keeping the peace, being the steady one. Celia kept sipping her tea, her eyes on her phone now, probably texting her sister Myra about some nonsense. Caleb grabbed an apple and headed for the door, muttering something about meeting his girlfriend. And me? I just stood there, the counter cold under my palms, feeling like a ghost in my own house. I'd spent 20 years building this family, pouring everything I had into it, and now they were telling me I didn't belong at one of the biggest moments of my son's life. It wasn't just the graduation, it was the message behind it. I wasn't needed. I wasn't wanted. I didn't argue. I couldn't. My chest felt tight, like someone had wrapped a chain around it and yanked hard, but I kept my face blank. "Okay," I said, my voice low, steady, like I was agreeing to skip a movie night, not being cut out of my own son's milestone. Celia didn't even glance up. Caleb was already halfway out the door, and that was it. The decision was made, and I wasn't part of it. I let go of the counter, my hands shaking a little, and walked upstairs to our bedroom. The house was quiet, too quiet, and every step felt heavier than the last. I pulled my old duffel bag from the closet, the one I used to take on fishing trips with my brother Luis back when life was simpler. I started packing, socks, shirts, a pair of shorts, moving on autopilot, not even sure where I was going yet. I sat on the edge of the bed, staring at the bag, and that's when it hit me. I didn't have to stay here. I didn't have to sit in this house waiting for them to realize what they'd just done to me. I grabbed my laptop, opened a travel site, and scrolled through destinations. Santorini popped up. White buildings, blue roofs, endless sea. It looked like the opposite of this suffocating kitchen. I booked the ticket right then. One way, leaving tomorrow. My phone buzzed. Probably Ellie from work asking about some report, but I ignored it. I didn't tell Celia. I didn't tell Caleb. I just zipped the bag shut and stood there, breathing hard, feeling a strange mix of anger and relief wash over me. The next morning, I was gone before they woke up. No note, no goodbye, just the sound of my truck pulling out of the driveway. I drove to the airport, my hands tight on the wheel, replaying their words in my head. Less awkward. Don't take it personal. By the time I boarded the plane, I wasn't just leaving the city. I was leaving them behind, at least for a while. I settled into my seat, the hum of the engines drowning out the noise in my mind, and stared out the window as the ground fell away. For the first time in years, I wasn't thinking about what they needed. I was thinking about me. Santorini was waiting, and I didn't owe anyone an explanation. Not anymore. As the plane climbed higher, I felt the weight start to lift, just a little. I didn't know what I'd find when I landed, but I knew one thing. I wasn't going to let them make me feel small again. I'd given them everything, every paycheck, every late night, every quiet moment I let slide when they forgot to say thanks. And this was how they repaid me. I leaned back in my seat, closing my eyes, picturing the sea ahead. They could have their graduation, their family-only day. I'd find my own peace, my own place, even if it was halfway across the world. The plane leveled off, and I let out a long breath. This wasn't running away. This was choosing myself, and damn, it felt good, even if it hurt like hell at the same time. I stepped off the plane in Santorini, the warm air hitting me like a soft wave, carrying the faint smell of salt and sun-baked stone. My duffel bag hung heavy on my shoulder as I made my way through the tiny airport, dodging tourists with their loud voices and bright shirts. I didn't care about the noise, not yet. All I wanted was to get to the villa I'd booked, drop my stuff, and figure out how to breathe again. The taxi ride was quiet, the driver humming some tune I didn't recognize, winding up narrow roads past white buildings stacked like sugar cubes against the cliffs. I stared out the window, watching the sea shimmer in the distance, and for the first time in days, my chest didn't feel like it was caving in. The villa was better than the pictures. Small, simple, with a stone patio that hung over the edge of the hill. The sea stretched out below, endless and blue, sparkling under the afternoon sun. I dropped my bag inside, kicked off my shoes, and stepped out onto the patio barefoot. The tiles were warm under my feet, and I stood there for a minute, just listening. No voices telling me I wasn't needed, no casual shrugs cutting me out. Just the wind and the waves, steady and indifferent. I grabbed a beer from the little fridge the owner had stocked, popped it open, and sank into a wooden chair. My feet went up on the railing, the cold bottle sweating in my hand, and I let out a long, slow breath. This was it. This was mine. I pulled out my phone, not to check for messages, but to take a picture. The sea, my feet, the beer. Simple. I posted it online with a caption, "Silence looks good on me." No explanation, no tags, just that. Within minutes, my brother Luis chimed in, his comment popping up. "Looking like a king, bro. Where you at?" I smirked, imagining his grin back home, probably sprawled on his couch with a soda in hand. Then Ellie texted, not a comment, a private message. "Wait, weren't you supposed to be at Caleb's graduation?" I read it, my thumb hovering over the screen, but I didn't reply. What was I supposed to say? That my own family didn't want me there? That I'd rather be here alone than begging for a spot at their table? I set the phone down and took a swig of beer instead, the cold, crisp, sharp on my tongue. Celia hadn't called. Caleb hadn't texted. Nothing. I wasn't surprised, but it still stung, like a paper cut you don't notice until it starts to burn. I'd always been the one to reach out first, to fix things, to smooth over the rough edges. Not this time. I leaned back in the chair, the sun warm on my face, and closed my eyes. The sound of the waves rolled in, steady and slow, washing away the echo of their voices. Less awkward. Don't take it personal. Out here, those words didn't reach me. Out here, I didn't have to be the guy who took it all in stride. I could just be. The rest of the day slipped by easy. I unpacked my bag, tossing clothes into a drawer, then wandered down to the little market nearby. The guy behind the counter nodded at me, friendly but not nosy, and I grabbed some bread, cheese, and a bottle of wine for later. Back at the villa, I sat on the patio again, tearing off chunks of bread and watching the sun dip lower, painting the sky orange and pink. My phone stayed quiet. No buzz, no guilt trips, no demands. I didn't check it. I didn't need to. For once, I wasn't waiting for them to decide I mattered. I mattered right here, right now, with the sea in front of me and the wind tugging at my shirt. Night came soft and slow, the stars popping out one by one. I poured a glass of wine, the red catching the glow of the little lantern I'd lit on the table. I thought about home for a minute, about Caleb in his cap and gown, Celia fussing over her hair, Myra probably taking a million pictures. I wondered if they'd even noticed I wasn't there, or if they just carried on like always, filling the space I used to take up. The thought twisted in my gut, but I pushed it down with another sip of wine. They didn't get to ruin this. Not this view, not this quiet, not this moment I'd carved out for myself. I stretched out in the chair, the wine warming me from the inside, and let my mind drift. Luis would get it. He'd always been the one to tell me I gave too much, took too little. Ellie would worry, but she'd understand once I told her. And Celia and Caleb, they could wait. They'd made their choice, and now I was making mine. The sea kept whispering below, and I listened, letting it pull me into the kind of peace I hadn't felt in years. This wasn't just a trip. This was me taking back something they'd taken for granted. Me. And damn if it didn't feel right, sitting there under the stars with nothing but silence to keep me company. I woke up on the third day in Santorini with the sun spilling through the open window, a soft breeze tugging at the curtains. The villa was still quiet, the kind of quiet that settles into your bones and makes you wonder how you ever lived without it. I rolled out of bed, my bare feet hitting the cool stone floor, and shuffled to the kitchen to make coffee. The sea was glittering outside, same as yesterday, but today felt different, like I'd finally started to sink into this place, letting it wrap around me. I took my mug out to the patio and sat by the infinity pool, the water so still it looked like glass. My phone was on the table, face down, where I'd left it last night. I hadn't checked it since that beer and feet photo, and I wasn't planning to. Not yet. The coffee was strong, bitter the way I liked it, and I sipped it slow, watching a fishing boat bob way out on the horizon. For a while, it was just me in the morning. No voices, no demands, no sting of being told I didn't fit. I stretched my legs out, feeling the sun warm my skin, and thought about staying here forever. Maybe I could sell the house, quit the job, live off bread and fish until the money ran out. It was a stupid idea, but it made me smile, picturing Celia's face if I told her I wasn't coming back. She'd probably just shrug and say it was my loss. Caleb might not even notice until he needed a ride somewhere. I was halfway through my coffee when the phone buzzed, just once, a quick jolt against the wood. I ignored it. Probably Luis checking in or Ellie with another question. I didn't care. I set the mug down and leaned back, closing my eyes, letting the sun paint red behind my lids. Then it buzzed again, and again. I opened one eye, annoyed, and flipped it over. The screen lit up, missed calls, texts, a voicemail icon blinking. Celia's name, Caleb's too, even Aunt Myra, Celia's sister, who never called unless someone was dying or she needed to meddle. My stomach twisted, not out of worry, but irritation. What now? What mess did they need me to clean up this time? I didn't touch it. I grabbed a beer from the fridge instead. Yeah, it was early, but I was on my own clock now, and walked back to the pool. The buzzing kept going like a fly you can't swat away. 5 calls, 10, 20. I sat down, popped the cap, and took a long pull, the cold fizz cutting through the heat in my chest. The screen kept flashing, names stacking up, but I didn't answer. I didn't listen to the voicemails either. Whatever it wasn't my problem. Not today. I'd spent years jumping when they called, fixing what they broke, smoothing over their fights. Not this time. Let them figure it out. I leaned back in the chair, the beer bottle sweating in my hand, and watched the sea instead. The waves were picking up, rolling in slow and steady, crashing against the rocks below. My phone buzzed again. Celia, probably leaving another message, her voice sharp and clipped like always. I could almost hear it without listening. Malcolm, where are you? This isn't funny. Or Caleb mumbling some half-baked excuse. Dad, something happened. Call me back. I didn't care. I took another sip, the bottle cool against my lips, and let the sound of the water drown out the noise in my head. By noon, it was a storm. 125 missed calls, the number climbing every time I glanced at the screen. Texts, too, piling up like leaves in a gutter. Malcolm, answer me. Dad, please. It's urgent. Call us. Urgent for who? I set the phone down again, harder this time, and walked to the edge of the patio, staring out at the cliffs. The white buildings glowed under the sun, the blue roofs sharp against the sky. It was beautiful, peaceful. Everything home wasn't. I didn't owe them anything. Not an explanation, not a rescue, not a damn thing. They'd made it clear I wasn't part of their big day. Why should I run back now? I finished the beer and grabbed another, settling by the pool with my feet dangling in the water. The cold bit at my toes, sharp and real, pulling me back to the moment. The buzzing slowed down eventually, like they'd tired themselves out, but I knew it wasn't over. They'd try again later, louder, angrier. I didn't care. I kicked my feet in the water, watching the ripples spread, and thought about how good it felt to not be needed. For years, I'd been the one holding it all together, paying bills, calming fights, driving Caleb to practice when Celia couldn't be bothered. And what did I get? A casual, don't come over tea and an apple. The sun climbed higher, burning off the last of the morning haze, and I stayed there, beer in hand, letting the day roll over me. I wasn't mad anymore, not like I was in the kitchen, gripping that counter. I was just done. Done waiting. Done chasing. Done being the guy they only noticed when they needed something. My phone buzzed one more time, Myra again, and I flipped it face down, the screen dark against the table. Whatever was happening back home, it could wait. I had this sun, this quiet I'd fought too long to find. They could keep their chaos. I was staying right here. I was sitting on the patio, the sun dipping low over the sea, painting the sky in streaks of orange and gold, when my phone rang again. It had been quiet for a couple hours, the buzzing finally dying down after that morning storm of calls. I'd spent the day by the pool, letting the heat soak into my skin, sipping water now instead of beer, feeling lighter than I had in years. The sea was calm, the air soft, and I was starting to think maybe they'd given up, until the screen lit up with Luis's name, my brother. I hesitated, my thumb hovering over the button. Luis wasn't like the others. He wouldn't guilt me or beg me to fix something. He'd just want to talk. I picked up. "Yo, Malcolm?" His voice came through loud, laughing already, like he'd been waiting to tell me something good. "You picked the best week to disappear, bro. I'm telling you, you missed a show." I leaned back in my chair, a grin tugging at my mouth despite myself. Luis had a way of making anything sound like a story worth hearing. "What happened?" I asked, keeping my tone light, even though part of me braced for the mess I'd dodged. He laughed again, harder this time, and I could picture him wiping his eyes, sprawled on his beat-up couch back home. "Caleb's graduation. Total disaster. You're going to love this." He started spilling it all, his words fast and sharp like he couldn't wait to get it out. "The ceremony went fine," he said. "Caleb got his diploma. Celia clapped too loud. Myra took a million blurry pictures. But the real chaos hit at the brunch after, some fancy place Celia picked to show off. Caleb's girlfriend, ex-girlfriend now, I guess, stood up in the middle of it, right there in front of the whole family, and called him out. "She had receipts, man," Luis said, still chuckling. "Text messages, pictures, everything. Said he'd been cheating on her for months with some girl from his econ class." Dropped it like a bomb, and walked out. I sat up straighter, the grin fading into something else. Shock, maybe? Or just disbelief. I could see it in my head. Celia's face going red, her fork frozen halfway to her mouth, trying to laugh it off like it was a joke. Caleb probably turned white, then red, then stormed out because that's what he does when he's cornered. Luis kept going, painting the scene. Celia tried to play it cool. You know how she is. Oh, young love, these things happen. But everyone was staring. Myra started crying into her napkin, saying something about family unity. And Caleb? He flipped a chair on his way out. Gone. Didn't even take his plate. I let out a low whistle, leaning forward now, my elbows on my knees. "A chair?" I said, and Luis laughed again. "Yeah, man, a chair. It was like a soap opera." I stared out at the sea, the last of the sunlight glinting off the waves, and tried to picture it. Part of me wanted to laugh. Serves them right, after all that family-only nonsense. But part of me just felt tired. Tired for them. Tired of them. "And get this," Luis said, his voice dropping like he was saving the best for last. "The whole time, they kept looking around like you were going to walk in and save the day. Celia even said it. If Malcolm was here, this wouldn't have happened. Can you believe that?" I snorted, shaking my head. "Yeah, I can believe it. That's her move. Blame me when I'm there. Blame me when I'm not." Luis went quiet for a second, then said, "You okay, bro? I mean, really?" I looked down at my hands, the phone warm against my ear, and thought about it. Was I okay? The sea was still there, the sky turning purple now, the villa quiet behind me. "Yeah," I said finally. "I'm good, better than good." He didn't push, just hummed like he got it. "Well, you missed a hell of a show. Wish I'd been smart like you and booked a plane ticket too." I smiled, a real one this time, and it felt good, like a crack in the wall I'd been holding up for too long. We talked a little more, about his job, his dog, nothing heavy. Then he said he'd call later, let me enjoy my paradise. I hung up and set the phone down, staring at it for a minute. They'd looked for me, after telling me not to come, after cutting me out. They'd still expected me to be there to fix it all. I stood up, walked to the edge of the patio, and leaned on the railing, the sea breeze cool against my face. The stars were starting to peek out, tiny dots against the dark, and I let Luis's words sink in. A disaster, a flipped chair, tears and blame, and me. I wasn't there to carry it. I wasn't there to make it right. I went inside, grabbed a glass of water, and came back out, settling into the chair again. The night was warm, the air thick with salt, and I felt something shift inside me. Not anger, not anymore, just a kind of quiet I hadn't known I could have. They'd made their mess, and I wasn't part of it. I didn't have to be. I sipped the water, the glass cold in my hand, and watched the stars brighten. For once, I wasn't the one picking up the pieces. I wasn't the one they could lean on and then push away. I was here, and they were there, and that was fine. More than fine. It was freedom. I woke up late on day 4, the sun already high, sneaking through the shutters and warming the stone floor of the villa. My head felt heavy, not from drinking, just from the weight of yesterday's call with Luis still sitting on me. I rolled out of bed, stretched until my back popped, and shuffled to the kitchen to make coffee. The sea was out there, same as always, shimmering like it didn't care about the mess back home. I didn't either. Not really. I took my mug to the patio and sat down, letting the heat of the cup seep into my hands, trying to shake off the picture Luis had painted. Chairs flipping, tears falling, and them looking for me like I was some kind of superhero who'd swoop in and fix it all. My phone was still on the table, quiet now, no buzzing to break the peace. I'd left it there after talking to Luis, not bothering to check the missed calls or texts that had piled up. I didn't want to hear Celia's voice, sharp and accusing, or Caleb's mumbled excuses. I sipped my coffee, the bitterness waking me up, and stared out at the water. The villa was mine for a few more days, and I planned to soak up every second of this sun, this silence, no one needing me to play the good guy. I was halfway through the mug when the phone lit up, a soft ping breaking the quiet. An email. I glanced at it, Celia's name in bold. My stomach tightened, but I didn't open it right away. I finished my coffee first, slow and deliberate, like I was proving something to myself. When I finally tapped the screen, her words were short, cold. Classic Celia. You've made your point. Come home. That was it. No sorry, no explanation, just her telling me what to do, like I was a kid who'd stormed off after a tantrum. I read it again, my jaw clenching, and set the phone down hard enough to make the table rattle. Made my point. This wasn't a game, wasn't some petty move to get back at them. I'd left because they'd pushed me out, because I was tired of being the one who took the hit and kept smiling. I stood up, pacing the patio, the tiles warm under my feet, feeling that old anger bubble up, the kind I'd swallowed for years. Then another ping, a text this time, from Caleb. Dad, I'm sorry. I screwed up. Please call me. I stopped pacing, staring at the words, my thumb hovering over the reply button. Sorry? He was sorry now? After the graduation? After the girlfriend drama? After letting his mom tell me I didn't belong? I could hear his voice in my head, low and hesitant, the way he sounded when he knew he'd messed up but didn't know how to fix it. Part of me wanted to call him, to hear him out, to be the dad who always made it right. But I didn't. I dropped the phone back on the table and walked to the edge of the patio, gripping the railing, the sea stretching out below like it could wash all this away. I wasn't ready. Not for Celia's orders, not for Caleb's guilt. I needed more time, more space, more of this quiet I'd found. I grabbed my shoes and a bottle of water, deciding to hike instead of sitting here stewing. The trail started just down the road, winding up the cliffs, and I set out, the sun hot on my shoulders, the air thick with the smell of salt and dry grass. My legs burned as I climbed, but it felt good, real, solid, something I could control. I passed a few other hikers, nodding hello, but kept going, higher and higher until I reached a spot where the whole island spread out below me. White houses, blue roofs, the sea endless and bright. I sat on a rock, catching my breath, and let my mind wander. I thought about all the times they'd forgotten me, not big things, just the little ones that piled up. My birthday last year, when Celia said she was too tired to cook and Caleb didn't even call. The rides I gave him to school, to practice, to friends' houses, no thanks, just a wave as he ran off. The nights I stayed late at work so he could have that tuition, so Celia could keep her nice car. I'd never asked for much, just a nod, a word, something to show it mattered. And then they'd sat there in the kitchen, casual as anything, telling me to stay home while they celebrated. I wiped sweat off my forehead, the sun climbing higher, and felt that ache in my chest again. Not sharp now, just dull, heavy. The hike back down was slower, my knees complaining, but my head was clearer. I stopped at the market, grabbed some bread and olives, and headed back to the villa. The phone was still there, glowing with their words, but I didn't touch it. I ate on the patio instead, tearing off chunks of bread, popping olives in my mouth, watching the sea turn gold as the sun started to sink. Caleb's sorry kept echoing in my head, but it wasn't enough. Not yet. I'd spent too long being the one who forgave first, who let it go, who kept the peace. This time, it'd have to wait. Night fell, the stars coming out slow, and I poured a glass of wine, sitting there with my feet up. The air was cooler now, the quiet deeper, and I let it settle over me. They could call, they could text, they could email all they wanted. I wasn't running back, not to Celia's demands, not to Caleb's mess. I took a sip, the wine sharp and smooth, and felt something like strength growing inside me. This wasn't about punishing them. It was about me finally seeing what I was worth. And out here, with the sea and the stars, I was starting to believe it. I woke up on day 5 with the sun already creeping over the cliffs, the light soft and golden through the villa's open window. My body felt stiff from yesterday's hike, but my mind was calmer, like the sea had smoothed out some of the rough edges overnight. I made coffee, same as always, and took it out to the patio, letting the warmth of the mug settle into my hands. The phone sat there, untouched since Caleb's text and Celia's email, but I didn't look at it. Today wasn't about them. Today I wanted something different, something new. I finished my coffee, grabbed my sandals, and decided to head down to the black sand beach I'd seen on the map. No plan, just a walk, a change of scenery. The path to the beach was steep, winding through dry shrubs and rocky patches, the air thick with salt as I got closer. My legs ached a little, but I kept going, the sound of waves growing louder until the sand came into view, dark, almost black, stretching out under the sun. It wasn't crowded, just a few people scattered around, some lounging, some wading in the shallow water. I kicked off my sandals, the sand hot under my feet, and walked toward the edge, letting the waves lap at my toes. The water was cold, a sharp contrast to the heat, and I stood there for a while, breathing it in, feeling the ground solid beneath me. I was about to sit down, maybe dig out the book I'd stuffed in my pocket, when I noticed her, a woman, maybe late 40s, sitting alone under a striped umbrella a few yards away. She had a notebook in her lap, a pen moving fast across the page, her dark hair tied back loose. Something about her caught my eye. Not loud, not flashy, just easy, like she belonged there. I didn't stare, just glanced. But then she looked up, caught me looking, and smiled. Not a big smile, just a quick one, friendly. I nodded back, feeling a little dumb, and turned to the water again, figuring that was it. "Beautiful, isn't it?" Her voice came a minute later, soft but clear, with a hint of an accent. French, maybe, Spanish. I turned, surprised, and saw she'd set her notebook down, leaning forward a bit. "Yeah," I said, walking closer, not sure why, but not stopping either. "Never seen sand like this before." She nodded, patting the sand next to her umbrella. "It's volcanic. Sit if you want. I don't bite." I hesitated, then shrugged and sat, the sand warm through my shorts. Up close, she had lines around her eyes, the kind that come from laughing or squinting at the sun, and a calmness I hadn't felt in anyone in a long time. Her name was Sabine, she told me, half French, half Spanish, a travel writer who'd been bouncing around islands for months. "I'm here for the quiet," she said, pouring wine from a small bottle into 2 plastic cups, handing me one without asking. I took it, the red catching the light, and sipped. It was warm, sharp, better than I expected. "Me too," I said, and she tilted her head like she was waiting for more but wouldn't push. I didn't give her the whole story, not yet, just said I was taking a break from home, from family. She nodded like she got it and told me about her own kids, grown now, scattered across Europe. "They don't need me much anymore," she said, smiling a little sad. "So I need myself instead." We talked for hours, the sun climbing higher, then dipping low. She told me about hiking in Mallorca, getting lost in caves, the time she slept on a beach in Portugal because she missed her ferry. I laughed, really laughed, the kind that shakes you loose, and told her about fishing with Luis, the time we capsized the boat and had to swim back, swearing the whole way. I didn't mention Celia or Caleb, and she didn't ask about the calls I kept ignoring, the phone silent in my pocket. It was easy with her, no pressure, no weight, like she saw me without needing me to explain. We ate olives from a little jar she brought, passing them back and forth, the salt sharp on my tongue. The beach emptied out as the afternoon faded, just us and a few stragglers left. She asked if I had ever traveled alone before, and I said, "No, not like this." "It's freedom," she said, leaning back on her elbows, the sunset turning her face gold. "But it's heavy too at first." I nodded, feeling that heaviness still in me, but lighter now, like I was shedding it piece by piece. "Yeah," I said, "I'm getting used to it." The sun sank below the water, the sky going purple, and we sat there quiet now, just watching. My phone buzzed once, probably them again, but I didn't check. Sabine didn't notice or didn't care, and I liked that. She didn't need me to be anything but here, sitting with her, sharing wine and stories. For once, I wasn't the husband who'd failed, the dad who'd been pushed out. I was just Malcolm, a guy on a beach, and she saw me, really saw me, without me having to beg for it. When it got dark, she packed up her notebook, said she'd be around tomorrow if I wanted to talk more. I said I might, and she smiled that quick smile again, then walked off toward the path. I stayed a little longer, the waves loud in the dark, feeling something warm settle in my chest. Not love, not anything big, just a moment where I wasn't invisible, and damn, it felt good. I woke up on day 6 with the sun already high, the villa quiet except for the faint hum of cicadas outside. My head was still buzzing from yesterday. Sabine, the beach, that easy way she'd made me feel seen without even trying. I rolled out of bed, my feet hitting the cool floor, and made coffee, letting the smell pull me awake. The sea was out there, shimmering like always. But today I didn't rush to the patio. I stayed inside, leaning against the counter, sipping slow, thinking about how different it felt to talk to someone who didn't need anything from me. No guilt, no fixes, just words and wine and the sound of waves. My phone was on the table where I'd left it, the screen dark but heavy with everything I hadn't faced yet. I'd ignored it all yesterday, texts, calls, that email from Celia, but I knew it was there, waiting. I finished my coffee, set the mug in the sink, and finally picked it up. The missed calls had slowed, but the voicemails kept stacking up. I scrolled through, seeing Celia's name, Caleb's, Myra's, even one from Luis I hadn't answered. I didn't want to listen, not really, but something pulled at me, curiosity maybe, or just the old habit of checking in. I tapped Celia's latest one, dated last night, and hit play. Her voice came through sharp, the way it always did when she was mad but trying to sound calm. "Malcolm, if you were there, Caleb wouldn't have snapped like that. We needed you, and you just left. This has gone on long enough." The message cut off abrupt, like she'd hung up before she could say more. I stood there staring at the phone, my jaw tight, feeling that familiar twist in my gut. Needed me? They needed me when it fell apart, but not when it mattered, not when they told me to stay home, not when they picked who got to sit at that table. I deleted the voicemail, my thumb pressing harder than it needed to, and tossed the phone back on the table. I walked out to the patio, the sun warm on my face, and leaned on the railing, looking down at the sea. Needed me. The words kept circling, digging in. For years I'd been the one they leaned on, the steady hand, the quiet fixer, the guy who didn't ask for much but gave everything. I'd driven Caleb to school when he missed the bus, sat through Celia's rants about her sister, paid bills late so they could have what they wanted. I'd been the backdrop to their lives, there but not really seen, holding it all together while they moved on without me. And now, when it all went wrong, it was my fault for not being there to catch them. I grabbed a chair, dragged it to the edge of the patio, and sat down hard, my hands clenched in my lap. The sea rolled in below, steady and slow, and I let my mind run back through it all. The times I'd stayed silent when Celia snapped at me, telling myself it wasn't worth the fight. The nights I'd waited up for Caleb only to get a text saying he was crashing at a friend's. The way they looked right through me in that kitchen, like I was just part of the furniture, not a man who'd built this family with his own hands. I thought that was my job, to be there, to take it, to keep things smooth. But what did I get? A casual, "don't come," and a voicemail blaming me for their mess. I stood up, pacing now, the tiles hot under my feet. The anger was there, but it wasn't loud, not like it had been when I'd packed my bag and left. It was quieter, deeper, mixed with something else. Clarity, maybe. It wasn't my absence that broke them. It was their neglect of me when I was there. They'd taken me for granted, assumed I'd always be around to pick up the pieces. And now that I wasn't, they didn't know what to do. I stopped pacing, leaning on the railing again, and let out a long breath. The sea kept moving, indifferent, and I felt a weight lift. Just a little, but enough. I went inside, grabbed the bottle of wine Sabine had left me, a spare she pressed into my hand with a grin, and poured a glass. The red glowed in the sunlight streaming through the window, and I took it back to the patio, settling into the chair. I deleted Celia's voicemail from my mind too, sipping slow, letting the taste ground me. She could blame me all she wanted. Caleb could sulk. Myra could cry into her phone. It didn't change the truth. I wasn't their crutch anymore. I'd spent too long being the backdrop, the shadow they only noticed when the lights went out. Not now. The wine was smooth, warm in my chest, and I watched the stars start to peek out, one by one. Sabine's words from yesterday floated back. Freedom. Heavy at first, but worth it. She was right. This wasn't about them anymore. It was about me. About seeing myself the way she'd seen me yesterday. Just a guy. Not a fix. Not a failure. I finished the glass, set it down, and leaned back, the night settling over me. No regret, no second guessing. They'd figure it out, or they wouldn't. Either way, I was done waiting in the wings. I was here, under these stars, and for once, that was enough. I woke up on day 7 with the sun already burning through the curtains, the air thick and warm in the villa. My head felt clear, lighter than it had in days, like that glass of wine last night had washed away some of the junk I'd been carrying. I stretched, my back cracking, and shuffled to the kitchen to make coffee, the routine grounding me. The sea was out there, sparkling under the morning light, and I took my mug to the patio, settling into my usual spot. My phone was still on the table, quiet since I deleted Celia's voicemail, but I knew it wouldn't stay that way. They'd call again. They always did when they realized I wasn't running back. I sipped my coffee, letting the bitterness wake me up, and waited. Sure enough, mid-morning, it buzzed. Luis this time. I picked up, leaning back in my chair, the sea breeze tugging at my shirt. "Hey, bro," he said, his voice easy but with an edge, like he had news. "You still kicking it in paradise?" I smiled, picturing him sprawled on his couch, probably scratching that mud of his behind the ears. "Yeah," I said. "Still here." "What's up?" He let out a low whistle, the kind he used when something big was brewing. "Man, it's falling apart over here. You sure you don't want to come play hero?" I snorted, setting my mug down. "Pretty sure. Tell me." He laid it out piece by piece, like he was reading a script. Caleb hadn't gone home after the graduation mess, been crashing at a friend's place, dodging Celia's calls, blaming everyone for what went down. "Kid's a wreck," Luis said. "Keeps saying it's his fault, then her fault, then your fault for not being there to stop it." I rolled my eyes, staring out at the water. My fault, of course. Luis kept going. Celia had packed a bag and moved in with Myra, saying she needed space from the house, from the drama. "She's been calling you nonstop, you know," he said. "Thinks you're punishing her." I didn't say anything, just let the words sit, heavy but not surprising. Then he dropped the last bit. Myra had left me a voicemail too, one I hadn't listened to yet. "She's all weepy," Luis said, mimicking her high-pitched whine. "Malcolm, you were always the balance. We need you back, like you're some glue holding their crazy together." I laughed, short and sharp, shaking my head. The balance. Funny how they only saw that now, after telling me to stay away. Luis went quiet for a second, then asked, "You good, man? I mean, really?" I looked out at the sea, the waves rolling in slow, and nodded, even though he couldn't see it. "Yeah," I said. "I'm good. Let them crack." We talked a little more about his job, the dog, how he'd dodge Myra's calls too, then hung up. I set the phone down and stood, stretching my arms over my head, feeling the sun on my skin. Cracks in the castle, huh? Caleb sulking, Celia running, Myra crying. It was their mess, not mine. I wasn't their glue, their balance, their fix. I'd been that for too long, patching up their fights, swallowing their slights, keeping it all steady while they took it for granted. Not anymore. I grabbed my sandals and decided to head out, find some food, clear my head, let the island pull me back to the present. I walked down to a little taverna near the cliffs, the smell of grilled fish and garlic hitting me as I stepped inside. The guy behind the counter nodded, friendly but not pushy, and I ordered fish and a glass of red wine, settling at a table outside. The food came fast, crisp, hot, the fish flaky under my fork, and I ate slow, savoring it, the wine sharp on my tongue. The sea was right there, glittering below, and I felt that quiet settle in again, the kind I'd been chasing since I got here. My phone buzzed once, Myra probably, but I ignored it, taking another bite instead. When I finished, I paid and walked back to the villa, the sun dipping lower now, casting long shadows on the path. I stopped at the market, grabbed some bread and cheese for later, and posted a picture when I got back. Me smiling, the sea behind me, caption, "Turns out, not reacting feels like peace." I didn't check for likes, didn't wait for comments. I didn't need their approval, didn't need them to see me. I poured another glass of wine and sat on the patio, the night creeping in, the stars popping out slow. Luis's words stuck with me, cracks in the castle. They were falling apart without me, but it wasn't my job to hold them up anymore. I sipped the wine, the glass cool in my hand, and let my mind drift. Caleb could blame me all he wanted. Didn't change the fact that he'd made his choices. Celia could run to Myra, play the victim, but she'd pushed me out first. And Myra, she could cry all she liked. I wasn't her brother's keeper. I leaned back, the chair creaking under me, and watched the sea turn dark. The cracks were theirs, not mine. I'd built something here, something solid, even if it was just a week of quiet, and damn if it didn't feel better than anything I'd left behind. I woke up on my last morning in Santorini with the sun just peeking over the cliffs. the sky still soft with that early gray-blue light. The villa was quiet, my bag half packed on the floor, the air cool through the open window. I lay there for a minute, staring at the ceiling, feeling the weight of leaving this place settle in. It wasn't heavy, not like the weight I'd carried when I got here, just a tug, a little ache for the peace I'd found. I rolled out of bed, my feet hitting the stone floor, and made coffee, the familiar routine steadying me. Today was it. My flight was in the afternoon, and I'd be back home by night. But I wasn't the same guy who had left. Not anymore. I took my mug outside, the patio still shadowed, and sat by the pool, watching the sunrise creep up slow, turning the sea gold. My phone was on the table, the screen cluttered with notifications I'd ignored, missed calls, texts, voicemails piling up like driftwood. I'd scrolled past them yesterday, not ready to face the noise, but now, with the island waking up around me, I felt steady enough to look. I sipped my coffee, the warmth spreading through me, and tapped the screen. Dozens of calls, Celia, Caleb, Myra, even a couple from Ellie at work. I skipped most of them, not interested in more guilt or blame, but one caught my eye. A voicemail from Caleb, left late last night. No text to go with it, just the little icon blinking. I hesitated, my thumb hovering, then hit play. His voice came through, low and rough, not the usual mumble. "Dad," he said, pausing like he wasn't sure how to start. "I really messed up. I know I did. Not just the graduation. All of it. I miss you, Dad." Another pause, a shaky breath. "I'm not making excuses. I miss you." The message ended, short and raw, and I sat there staring at the phone, my coffee forgotten in my hand. No, sorry, no, call me. Just that. "I miss you." It hit me harder than I expected, pain blooming in my chest. Not sharp, just deep. I set the phone down and leaned back, watching the sun climb higher, the light spilling over the cliffs. "I miss you." Simple words, but they stirred something. Memories of Caleb as a kid, climbing into my lap after a bad day, asking me to fix his bike, grinning when I cheered at his games. I'd been his rock back then, the guy he ran to, and somewhere along the way, that had faded. He'd grown up, pulled away, let Celia's words drown mine out. But this was him reaching back. Maybe not all the way, but enough to crack the wall I'd built. I didn't want to run home, didn't want to fix it all, not yet. But I felt it, that pull, that old love I'd buried under the hurt. I stood up, walked to the edge of the patio, and leaned on the railing, the sea breeze cool against my face. The island stretched out below, white houses glowing, the water endless and bright. I'd shed so much here, anger, guilt, the need to be their anchor. But Caleb's voice stayed with me, quiet and real, and I knew I couldn't leave it hanging, not like this. I went back to the table, picked up the phone, and opened the voice recorder. My hands were steady, my voice slow when I started. "Caleb," I said, pausing to find the words. "I heard you. I'm glad you called, but I'm not coming back to fix this for you. When you're ready to talk like a man, not a victim, not a kid, call me. I'll be there." I stopped, hit send, and powered off the phone, the screen going dark. I finished my coffee, the mug cold now, and started packing the rest of my stuff. Shirts, sandals, the little jar of olives Sabine had left me. The villa felt smaller now, like it was letting me go, and I moved slow, folding clothes, zipping the bag shut. I took one last walk around the patio, the sun warm on my shoulders, and stood at the edge, breathing it in. This place had given me something: clarity, strength, a chance to see myself without them defining me. Caleb's call didn't change that. It just reminded me there was still something worth saving if he'd meet me halfway. I grabbed my bag, locked the villa, and headed to the taxi waiting down the road. The driver nodded, tossing my duffel in the back, and we wound through the cliffs toward the airport. I watched the sea fade behind me, the white buildings shrinking, and felt lighter than I had in years, not free, not completely. There was still home, still them, but lighter. I'd left a piece of myself here, the part that waited, that begged to be seen. What I was taking back was different, stronger, surer, mine. The airport was small, busy with tourists, and I checked in, settled into a chair by the gate, my bag at my feet. My phone stayed off, tucked away. Caleb might call again, might not. Celia might show up at the house, might not. But I wasn't waiting anymore. I'd said what I needed to, given him the door to walk through if he was ready. The plane boarded, and I took my seat, the hum of the engine steady as we climbed. Santorini fell away below, a speck of white and blue, and I closed my eyes, letting it go. Whatever came next, I'd face it on my terms. I stepped off the plane late that night, the air cool and sharp after Santorini's warmth, my duffel bag slung over my shoulder as I shuffled through the airport. The hum of people, tired voices, rolling suitcases felt louder than I remembered, but I kept my head down, moving steady toward the parking lot where I'd left my truck. It was still there, dusty but waiting, and I tossed my bag in the back, sliding into the driver's seat. The engine rumbled to life, familiar and rough, and I pulled out, the city lights blurring past as I headed home. I didn't know what I'd find there. Celia, Caleb, an empty house, but for once, I wasn't bracing for it. I was just driving. The house came into view after 20 minutes, dark and quiet, no lights in the windows. I parked, grabbed my bag, and walked up the steps, the key cold in my hand. The door creaked open, and I stepped inside, flipping the switch. The living room glowed soft under the bulb, same couch, same TV, but it felt different, emptier. Celia's stuff was gone, her throw pillows, that ugly vase she loved, the shoes always piled by the door. No note, no mess, just silence. I stood there, letting it sink in, and realized it didn't hit me like I thought it would. It felt clean, like the air after a storm. She'd left, and I was okay with it. I dropped my bag by the stairs and walked through the house, checking rooms out of habit. The kitchen was bare, no dishes in the sink, no tea bags on the counter. Caleb's room was the same, bed unmade, but his backpack and clothes were missing. He hadn't been here either. Still crashing somewhere else, I guessed. I didn't feel the urge to call him, to check. He'd heard my message, and the ball was in his court now. I went back downstairs, grabbed a beer from the fridge, one I'd left behind, and cracked it open, the fizz loud in the quiet. The house was mine again, for better or worse, and I wasn't sure what to do with it yet. I took the beer to the living room, sat on the couch, and stared at the blank TV. My suit for the graduation was still hanging in the closet. I'd bought it months ago, black and crisp, thinking I'd stand proud when Caleb walked the stage. I didn't need it now. I got up, pulled it out, and ran my hand over the fabric. It felt heavy, like a promise I'd made to myself that they'd broken. I didn't want it sitting there, a reminder of what didn't happen. I folded it into a box, added the tie, and set it by the door. Donation, maybe, or trash. Either way, it wasn't mine anymore. The next morning, I woke up slow, the house still quiet, the sun filtering through the blinds. I made coffee, strong and black, and drank it at the kitchen table, feeling the space around me. It wasn't lonely, not yet, just different. I pulled out my phone, powered it on for the first time since Santorini, and watched the notifications roll in. Texts from Ellie asking if I was back, a couple from Luis checking in. Nothing from Celia, nothing from Caleb. I texted Ellie I was home, told Luis I'd call later, and left it at that. I didn't dig through the old stuff, didn't listen to voicemails. I was done chasing their voices. I needed something to do, something mine. So I looked up a hiking club online, local, weekends, nothing fancy. I signed up, no hesitation, picturing trails and fresh air, a way to keep moving. Back in Santorini, I'd felt alive on those cliffs, and I wanted that here too. I spent the day cleaning, wiping counters, tossing old junk, making the house feel less like theirs and more like mine. By evening I was tired, my hands gritty, but it felt good, like I was carving out a space I'd lost somewhere along the way. That night, I cooked dinner. Steak, simple, seared in a pan with salt and pepper. I lit a candle, one Celia had left behind, and set it on the table, the flame flickering soft. I ate alone, the steak hot and juicy, the beer cold in my hand, and didn't mind the quiet. It wasn't empty, it was full of me. I didn't need their noise, their chaos to feel whole. I finished, washed the plate, and sat back on the couch, the candle still burning low. The house creaked, settling, and I let my mind drift, not to them, but to what came next. Caleb might call, might show up with that look in his eyes, ready to talk like I'd asked. I'd listen if he did, but I wouldn't beg for it. Celia might come back, might not. I didn't care either way. She'd made her choice, and I'd made mine. I wasn't waiting anymore, wasn't holding my breath for them to see me. Santorini had shown me I didn't need to. I'd been the backdrop too long, fading into their story, but now I was the whole damn thing, front and center, no apologies. I blew out the candle, the smoke curling up, and headed to bed, the stairs creaking under my feet. The man who'd left this house a week ago was gone, angry, invisible, waiting. The man who came back was different, steadier, surer, alive. I climbed into bed, the sheets cool, and closed my eyes, the quiet wrapping around me. Whatever came tomorrow, I'd face it as me, not their shadow, and that was enough.